G'day everybody and welcome to my Aussie Gardening Kitchen. If it's your first time here, my name's Darren, but please call me Daz. And in this video today, we're going to be looking at my orchard and my other fruit trees that I've got here in my yard. Now, I've surprised myself because while making the video, I've just realized that I've got around 40 fruit trees in this half-acre block. Anyway, I'm also going to be looking at fruit fly, Mediterranean fruit fly, and how I tackle the situation here. So come along, check it out, and yeah, I'll see you at the end of the video. Thanks. So here I am in my orchard. I really enjoy this place. It's probably my favorite part of the garden, I'd say. I've got apples, pears, plums, peaches, apricots, cherries. I've got some figs in pots waiting to go. I love it. It's really good. Now I've planted everything a little bit close together in here. When we built this house 3 years ago, I was reading about backyard orchard culture. And it was really fascinating. I was seeing that people were actually planting fruit trees side by side like this. It was amazing. Now, I haven't done that, but I have brought mine a little bit closer. And then with pruning techniques and regular watering, feeding, it doesn't seem to be a problem. Last year, I had a really good bumper crop of fruit and I ate most of it fresh. Well, so did the family, but we did get to preserve some of it and that was fantastic. I love preserving my fruit and vegetables. We're about 6 weeks into spring here in Australia, so all my fruit trees have pretty much flowered already. The pear just over my shoulder here, that's still got a few flowers on it that are dying off now and they're slowly progressing to the fruit stage. So I'm pretty excited. It's the middle of spring and I've got fruit just starting to form on some of the trees. I've got some cherries growing, I've got some peaches growing, which I really can't wait for. I've got some plums growing over my shoulder here. It's fantastic. It's just the best feeling in the world to get out here and see all that fresh fruit growing and know that I grew it and I know what's gone into it. It's all organic. You just can't beat it. Now, it's not a perfect world here. I do have my problems, including flies, as you can see. My biggest problem I have to deal with is fruit fly. Not those little tiny ones that you see buzzing around the house in the fruit bowl. But here we've got Mediterranean fruit fly and they're a really, really bad pest. So bad, in fact, that it's a big deal with our local area. And about 25 minutes, half an hour down the road, we actually have a stop where there's bins and signage. And to go any further past that sign, you need to stop and pull over and empty all your fruit into the bins. So anyway, here, what I do for fruit fly is I've got a trap that I bought. And I have a solution that I put in that. And I've also made fruit fly traps myself and I have them hanging around the trees, hopefully catching the male and female fruit flies. Seems to be working. I've also got a couple of those yellow sticky plastic things that you hang and they're attracted to the yellow color and stick to them. I've got one at the moment that's hanging just off camera here and I'm a bit iffy about continuing to use them because I've just had a look at it. And there are a few bugs on there that I'm not happy with being trapped in dying. So I think I might give that one the flick and just stick to the container traps that I'm using. The other thing I do to combat my fruit fly here is that I've started using exclusion bags last year. Now the ones I have, I can't remember the dimensions offhand, but I'd say they're about that tall and about that wide. And what I do is I'll pull the bag over the branch where the fruit's hanging and tie it off. And that stops the fruit flies from getting in and affecting the fruit. Now, if you're not sure what happens is that the fruit flies will land on a piece of fruit and they will sting it. And when they sting it, they're injecting the eggs inside the fruit. So that's why when you open up your fruit, you'll get all those white worms crawling in there, those little white grubs. That's from the fruit fly. So I'm trying to combat that this year. I had good success last year. I missed a few, but that was because I left it a little bit too late. So this year I'm trying to get it under control, trap them and exclude them, and hopefully my peaches, plums, apricots, etc., they'll do fine this year and I won't have the fruit fly issue. Now that's not the only fruit trees I have. Believe it or not, I've got about another 17 fruit trees out in the yard, either in the ground or in pots at different stages. Now I've got mulberries over there. I've got dwarf mulberries. I've got a standard mulberry, a standard black mulberry in ground as well. I've got mulberries from cuttings in pots. And I've also got a couple of really cool things like a curry tree. Absolutely love my curry tree. I make curry at least once a week here, and those fresh leaves being pulled off the curry tree and put into my recipes, oh man, it is the best. Now, beside the curry tree, I've got a mystery fruit tree. So what happened there is that I had a couple of fruit trees pop up from seed in my compost. Now, I've got a feeling they're probably a peach or nectarine, looking at the leaves and going by what we've eaten in the past. So I've got those going in pots, and I'm just going to grow them out until they start forming flowers and things like that. And eventually I'll get them into the ground somewhere. Not in here, unfortunately. I think I've pretty much done it for space in my little enclosed orchard. I've got a row of oranges and mandarin trees growing along beside the orchard, and they're going to grow as a windbreak. Now, they're younger than the trees in here, so the plan is that by the time they get up and I start making a hedge, like a windbreak of oranges and mandarins, these trees in here are going to be higher. So the oranges outside won't be blocking the sun, but they will be blocking most of the wind that's going to get under the foliage in here, because I have had a fair bit of damage in here with the wind. So that's the plan. Hope it works, and looking forward to all those oranges and mandarins out there as well. I've got some macadamia trees. I've got a macadamia in a grow bag at the moment, and that's doing quite well, and that's due to go into the ground. And I've got a smaller macadamia in a smaller pot, and that's doing quite nicely, and that's about to be upgraded to a larger pot, possibly into the ground. Not sure about that yet. I've got a lemon tree, my trusty lemon tree. It's a rescue lemon tree. I saved that from a previous property, and it was looking pretty bad. And I'm going to try, as you can see, espalier it across the wire fence that I have dividing the yard. Now, it's not the most beautiful looking espalier job, but it's going to be growing flat against the fence, which is quite good. And if you're wondering, I've got the fence dividing the yard, so the dog has one side and the kids and the chickens can have the other side. Actually, the chickens share, I've got other chickens that share this side as well with the dog. Luckily, they get on quite well. I've got 4 fig trees in pots. Now, I'm probably going to put at least 1 here in the orchard with me. Thinking about 2, I'll see how I go, whether I can have the space and keep them cut down. But yep, I've got 4 figs, and I'm quite looking forward to getting them growing into the yard and just having an abundance of figs. Everybody loves figs. Well, a lot of people like figs. Luckily we do, so looking forward to them. I've got an avocado, beautiful Hass avocado growing in a large pot. I'm keeping that in the pot at the moment because we've been getting some severe frosts leading up to spring and even at the start of spring. So the plan is to just keep the avocado growing just here in my little outdoor area, and then once it's ready to go, I'm going to move it to a nice spot in the yard. And I may even look at putting a structure of shade cloth just to protect it from the harsh Australian sun in summer and those frosts that come in winter. Now, I'm not done there yet with the trees. I've got olive trees out in the front yard. I've got a great big row of olive trees that grow along my driveway, and I must thank my next door neighbour who actually planted them before we bought this block of land. So when we built here, they were very well established, and I've now got these gorgeous olive trees just running along my driveway. They're a beautiful looking tree. Unfortunately, we don't eat olives here, so I'm looking at getting an olive press and making my own olive oil. Very much looking forward to that because we do go through a bit of olive oil, and it's not the cheapest oil to buy over here. So anyone that's got to know me and my channel by now will know that this is one of my very favourite parts of the garden. This is my raspberry growing area. Now I've got 3 beds here, 3 raised garden beds, and all these beds here have a mix of single bearing and ever bearing raspberries. Now what's fantastic about doing that is that I can grow raspberries pretty much 5 to 6 months of the year just by having raspberries that start ripening at one time and just continue on. And then when they stop ripening, the next lot start ripening and continue on. So it's fantastic. I really enjoy my raspberries. And in fact, if you want some hints and tips on growing raspberries, I've got a video that I've just recently done, and it talks about how to grow raspberries, how to prune them, and very importantly, it tells you all about the different types of raspberries. When it comes to pruning raspberries, you really need to know whether you've got the ever-bearing or the single-bearing type, because there are a few techniques that you can use when pruning, and it will make a big difference if you know what particular type of raspberry you've got to start with. We're now looking at my newest addition to the yard. I've got a structure that I've built here, and the plan is that I've got a couple of grapes here. These ones here are red seedless grapes. I've got a flame variety and a crimson variety, and I'm hoping to get those to grow up and over an arch. And then on this side here, I've got a row of thornless blackberries. Now these blackberries, there's 7 of them here. They're actually ones that I've propagated from my yard here. And yes, I do have a video on that. So you can actually go back through my videos and you will see how I propagated these successfully. And I'm actually about to do an updated video on these in the next week or 2. So do keep an eye out for that, because it's pretty interesting to see how I was able to get all these free plants. And as you can see, they've got some good growth on them just from taking cuttings from another plant. So the plan for these is to have them all in a row down here and to have them grow up here. And what I do with my blackberries is I'll cut them off at about, say, 5 foot, 4 to 5 foot. And then what happens is, because you cut them off at that height, they'll start growing out sideways and they'll grow lateral branches. And with those branches, you're going to get a lot more fruit because there's more branches and that equals more fruit. So rather than have these tall, lanky canes that just stick up in the air, I don't want them interfering with the grapes anyway. So I'm going to have them sort of living in harmony. So the sun goes from my left overhead to my right. So the plan is that hopefully the grapes will be getting good sun coming up and over the arch. And then I'll cut them off just above the blackberries. And then I'll have a nice row of blackberries growing all the way down here, and they'll get plenty of sun too. And then hopefully I'll be getting blackberries off this side and grapes off this side, and being able to walk through and hopefully pick grapes from overhanging branches. Well, that's the plan anyway. So this is my thornless blackberry. This is the mother plant. Now that beautiful plant that you saw in the orchard is taken from this, where I just got a tip and bent it down into the soil, let that root, cut it off, and that cutting is now that beautiful plant that you saw. And the 7 plants that you saw in pots that I'm about to grow, they're cuttings from the plant that's over in the orchard. And the great thing about these blackberries is that they're a thornless blackberry. So obviously no thorns, and they're less invasive than the wild blackberries. They do produce a really nice fruit. So if you can, for the home garden, I do recommend getting yourself a thornless blackberry. And don't go spending money on advanced plants and things like that. If you're patient, if you're happy to wait a year or 2, just propagate them. It's so easy, and I do recommend it. So this is one of my 2 passion fruit plants, and unfortunately this one got hit pretty hard by frost this season. Now that's down to me. I knew the frost was coming, but I kept on forgetting to come out and covering it. And I was coming out some mornings, and it was the top of it especially, the leaves were rock solid hard. They were so frozen. But it's now coming back. You can see that there is new growth that's popping out, and it's reaching out for the sunlight. And we're at the time of the year now, 6 weeks or so into spring, where it's just loving the sunlight that we're getting. Now you can see that this one's in a container. And of course, yes, I do have a video where you can check out information on growing passion fruit in containers. And in fact, as I speak, I think that video is sitting at around 16 to 17,000 views. So hopefully a lot of people out there have taken that information and been able to use it. Okay, so please check out my next video where we'll be looking at my veggies that I grow here at springtime in Australia. Please consider giving this video a thumbs up. It really does help the channel grow, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.